And by the way, just to kind of give you guys a kind of heads up, this beginning inventory, we just do it for 1 year here, but or 1 month actually. But with LIFO, this inventory can stick around for decades. It can stick around for years and years and years, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like it, is that you have this inventory that's priced from 30 years ago on your books. He just keeps selling the last ones in. The first ones, unless you sell out the entire store at some point, these first ones never get sold. And just to let you know, another thing that you'll see in books a lot of times, this is LIFO, and a lot of times you'll see them do this first. They'll say, okay, instead of, you may have, 50 purchases and dozens of sales and all this kind of stuff. And they'll say, okay, instead of going through each one of those and doing the cost of goods sold like we did here, which is correct, sometimes it's quicker. Say, okay, well, if the last one's in where the first one's sold, that means that the first one's in, we're still in inventory. So sometimes it's just easier to get the ending inventory rather than going through, say, 50 layers of, of inventory like this. It's just easier to go, okay, well, what's left in the ending? Okay, if this is the ending, then the rest of it must be, in cost of goods sold. So sometimes in the book and stuff, you'll see them do that. And if you're wondering why, how come LIFO we use FIFO? Well, it's LIFO for the cost of goods sold. Last is first out. But down here, these are the first ones in. So the first ones in are sort of like the ones not sold. Sometimes it's easier to get the not sold than the sold. Okay, so today what we're going to do is hopefully finish the Chapter 6 handout. We'll do weighted average cost. You'll usually see this just called average cost, but it is weighted. And the merchandising income statement. Let me change that. Multiple step income statement. And let me add an E in there. Okay, so this Chapter 6, hopefully we finish the thing up today. Weighted average cost, often you'll see it just called average cost, but it is weighted. It's weighted by the inventory. And multi-step income statement. Okay. Let me change cameras. Get my calculator, and we definitely need a calculator for this one. Okay. Let me zoom this in a little bit. Okay, average cost method. So this method is you simply add up all the costs and then average into how many units you have. Now the sales are going to be exactly the same, like we've done 8 times now. So the sales will be just like we've always done. Sold 120. So this is page 9. So 120 times 40 is it 4,800? Oops. Turn the calculator on. Yep. So that was pretty easy. It's the same thing we've been doing forever. Now, average cost. So here's what we have to do. We have to add up the units. So total units is it's 200. And then we have to multiply these out though. We have to multiply these. So 160 times 21. 3,360. 40 times 25. 1,000. Check that first one again. It looks funny to me. Nope, that's right. Okay. Okay, so these are the totals that we have. Our inventory, we had 200 units. The cost of those units was 4,360. So how would we find the average cost for each of those units? If you think you have the average cost, either yell it out or put it in a chat. I should probably say weighted average. And good. Yes, it's 28. Oops, let me do this again. No, $21.80. Let me fix this. So we would take the total cost. Was 43.60. Oops. Divided by move all this over. Equals 2180. So you're going to take the 43.60 and divide it by 200. $21.80. Oops, that's not it, right? Excuse me. Now, the nice thing is once you get this average cost per unit, I should move this down. I'll always put the dollars on the top. So those are costs per unit. Now, here's the nice thing about average cost. Whatever you sold, everything is at 2180. So cost of goods sold at 2180 and the inventory is at 2180. So once you get this average cost per unit, the rest of it's pretty simple. You don't have to do anything with layers, you're not counting off the inventory or anything like that. So you say, okay. So we have units, sold 120. Equals some number. Times 20. 2616. That's it. That's the cost of goods sold. You can just label this cost of goods sold. You don't have to, you don't have to put two layers in here or two things here. But yeah, because whatever it is, whatever you sold them at, this will be the cost of goods sold. And again, this is so once you get the average cost, it's pretty quick. Sales 4,800. Oops. Excuse me. Okay, ending inventory is kind of the same. So we have units. I'll do the math here. So it'll be units available for sale is 200, and what I mean by that is that's the most we could have sold. So how many units were available to sell? We had 200 that were available. So 200 were available. We could have sold 200 units. We didn't. We only sold 120, but we could have sold 200. I'm going to insert a. Okay. Sold 120. A minus there. And this will be our ending inventory. otherwise known as what was not sold. Oops. $80. Yay. Times average cost per unit. Oh, this guy goofed up. Let me from here. The same one. 2180. Equals some number. $1,744. Excuse me. And I want to show you something that maybe give a little more insight into it. And that is, we had our cost of goods sold. Was 2,184. No, it wasn't. 2,616. Get our ending inventory. If we add those two together, 1744 plus 2,000. So you'll know, I'm going to copy this. Up here. So you see this, the cost to be available is 4360. And that inventory was either sold or not sold. So coming down here, and by the way, this is for every method. Every method you could do that with. Get a total cost. And some of it was sold. So here's the amount that was sold. And here's the amount that was not sold. And those two together will be the same as that cost of available from. So, this is inventory that was sold. And there's the total of it that we could have sold, but we didn't. And then this will just become the beginning inventory. So this is the ending inventory. I should probably put a date there. That would be for 1/31. And so the neat thing too about this average cost is you just have one line of beginning inventory. You don't have 5 lines or 10 lines or whatever. It's just whatever the ending inventory is, the average cost per unit. Then you start all over again and do the average cost, and it just keeps rolling along. Any question on that one? And again, in the past, the calculations were just too hard. Yeah, before they had calculators, I know it sounds like ancient history, but before they had calculators, forget about computers. Before they even had calculators, they didn't really have functional calculators that could do most of the stuff until the 1960s. It sounds like ancient history too, but business has been around for hundreds of years, so the average cost method was really not practical for most businesses up until the 1960s, 1970s. Ironically, now with computers, it's the easiest one because you just need 2 variables. Whatever you're selling, you just need 2 variables. You need the total cost and you need the units. And for a computer, it can do the calculations in billionth of a second or whatever. And so again, so nowadays, I mean, it's if you're into programming, it's far and away the easiest of them. If you have to program for LIFO or FIFO, you have to do temporary variables basically for each layer. And once that layer is sold, it's a headache. You have to keep track, it has to keep track of all these different layers of inventory. Whereas the average cost, you buy 10 of them for whatever, put in 10 units, put in the total cost you paid for it. The computer does the rest. Very easy for the computer to average that. Okay, let's see here. Okay. I will try to be quiet for a minute and see if you guys can work out this one. And again, the hard part is getting the average cost. Once you get that, it's just one number. Everything gets multiplied by that same number. When you get the average cost per unit, either put it in the chat or yell it out. I'll be working it myself. All right, so we've already got this, so I'm gonna copy this because you for now. Okay, so this was actually, well, these are pretty close to the same thing. I'll have to change this so they're not between that one and this one for the average cost was 60 bucks. Okay, so 2150 will be our cost per unit. Again, the sales, it doesn't, the sales are not affected by the cost. I know it sounds strange, but So what might have came in. And these would be the goods that went out. So we sold 150. Average cost is $21.50. No, 32, 3,025. That's our cost of goods sold. You don't have to put a separate line in here. You could even just label as cost of goods sold. We're not really adding up any layers. This is one. It's funny. This is the right number. Okay. And so once you get, that average cost per unit, that just goes for everything. That's the sold, that's the ending inventory. It's just all the same number. And the gross profit is how much do we make on just selling those goods, on just the goods themselves? We sold for 7,500. The average cost was 3,225. So on just selling the goods, we made a profit or a gross profit of 42.75. Okay, so units we had available for sale. And I apologize if those are the same as the last time, the 200. They're not always going to be 200 units. That's just a unhappy coincidence. So available for sale was 200. We sold. How did I say it last time? I don't want to confuse got that weird spacing there, but okay. So he sold 150. Leaving us with ending inventory. Not so of 50. Times the cost each, or average per unit cost. Fine. Oh, okay. Oh, totally. That's what we need. 150, 50. $1,075. So this would be our ending inventory. I'm going to copy this thing down. So this is the most we could have sold. The available 4,300. That just came from up here. That's that number. So 4,300 is what we could have sold. Actually sold 3,225, and the ending inventory on it was not sold. It was 1,075. Question on that thing? Okay, so that is the 3 ways that we're going to do the inventory. LIFO, FIFO, over here. Let's see, FIFO first. FIFO, which probably is the most accurate. LIFO Theoretically, the best measure of income because it uses the last prices, the most up-to-date prices. And economists will tell us that that is the best estimate of what the true income is for a company. And I think I told you guys that this one is US only. So you're only going to see it used in the United States. It's not in international standards prohibited. And then average cost is I should say weighted average. Probably somewhere in the middle. Okay, so these are the kind of the three methods that we use. I'm gonna go over one more thing just before we say goodbye to the different cost methods. I'm going to go over just I just want to go over like a basic here for thinking about inventory. Well, you know, I want to just use the I want someone with more layers. Hey, page 8, I think we have page 8 had a bunch of layers. Oh, that's a bad one to use. I'm sorry. And we'll use this last one. Okay, now this is kind of exaggerated, but you'll notice something, and that is over time, do costs usually go up or down? This cost each over time does it usually go up or down?
Up.
Up. Yeah, inflation, right? So costs are usually they go up over time. A car today costs more than a car 20 years ago, right? So cost of things go up. Now, knowing that, usually the cheaper ones are in the beginning inventories, and the more expensive ones are later on. So usually, if you're selling these first ones, they're the cheaper ones. So FIFO usually has higher income. Oops. Yeah, yeah, right. It also usually has a higher ending inventory. And it's just the opposite for LIFO. So you'll usually have higher income and higher ending inventory if you use the FIFO method. Oops, oops, oops. And oh, there you go. And down here, it is just the opposite. Oops, oops, oops. I'm not going to do we'll do multi-step next class. All right, so this is through LIFO. These, I'm going to shrink these a little bit. A little, oh, so I'll shrink full screen. All right. So those are usually lower income. Because the last inventory, the expensive inventory, okay, so this is kind of comparison of the two. FIFO usually has a higher income. Cheap ones are sold first. And usually has a higher in the inventory. The most expensive ones, the last ones you bought in, if there is inflation, the last ones you bought are not sold. So you still have those on hand. LIFO usually has the lowest income. The most expensive ones are the ones you said are sold first. Again, this is the theoretical one. This is not the way, this is not the actual inventory flow, but economists will tell us this is the best one for what your income really is, because it has the most current prices on it. So lower income usually, and usually lower ending inventory. This is cheap inventory is not sold. This inventory might be on the books at prices from 1974. So, you know, the cheap inventory is not sold. And one of the reasons why I think that the international people don't like it is the ending inventory could be on the books at something ridiculously low that doesn't really reflect what's in the ending inventory. So because of that, they probably, my guess is this is because you get inventory on there for decades, they say, no, you can't do that because it'll be your books will, your financial statement, your balance sheet will be really misstated because you'll have stuff on there from years ago. And average cost, somewhere in the middle. Okay. One last thing on inventory. There are many, many ways of doing inventory. There really is only two criteria for inventory methods. I know I just showed you that there's those three different ways. There's dozens of ways of doing inventory. It must be systematic, and rational. Systematic means, oops. Repeatable with the same result. So I can do it, you can do it, anyone can do it, and we'll get the same answer. You know, for instance, LIFO, FIFO. You know, if I do FIFO and you do FIFO, we'll get the same answer. It's systematic. There's a system to it. And rational just means it makes sense. Lowercase, but so just rational does it make sense? And the methods that we've went over, you know, these all make sense to some degree. This one is usually more accurate for the inventory flow. This one has more accurate income. And this one's kind of in the middle. This one says, okay, some are expensive, some are cheap, but on average, this is what we paid out for them. But these really are the only two criteria that you have. And if you're going into accounting, these are you know, as far as inventory, many other things is that it must be systematic and it must be rational. There's a whole bunch of different ways of doing inventory, but these are probably the most common ones. Lastly, and then I'll shut up about inventory and we'll end our day here. Last thing is companies do not have to use the same inventory method for everything. It's not uncommon to have, say, you know, something like repair parts we average cost, and inventory that you sell to the public might be LIFO or FIFO. So it isn't necessarily they have to have one or the other for all their inventory. There could be a mix of LIFO, FIFO, average cost, or even something else. So they don't have to all say the same. Now, because it does impact the income, I know you're probably thinking, well, okay, if I'm a company, why won't I just use FIFO? Because my income is going to be higher usually. You will, along with the financial statements, you put footnotes in. The footnotes will tell how the inventory is calculated. So you give the reader, you know, the information that they need. People evaluate income statements, they or in balance sheets, they know that LIFO and FIFO will give you different numbers. It's just the way it is. So you just have to tell them, okay, for this we use LIFO, for this inventory we use average cost or whatever it was. So you put that all in the footnotes of the financial statement, so the people reading it will know, you know, which method you used. Any questions on that? And even though it's not allowed by international standards, many U.S. companies use LIFO. And I haven't checked the tax code lately, but the tax code used to kind of, I don't say force you to do it, but people usually had to use LIFO for their taxes too. So it's not like it's going away. It's not some weird thing that's going away. It's probably the most used inventory is LIFO for large companies anyway, because it gives them most accurate income. All right, any questions? We'll do the multi-step income statement. I know I put it on today, but we'll get to it next class. And I think I'm going to do a problem or two out of the book next class for the, you know, the problems of LIFO, FIFO, and the multi-step income statement really isn't that hard. So, I don't know, 20 minutes or something. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Well, I will talk to you guys on Thursday then. Okay. All right, guys. Well, enjoy your day. I don't know if hopefully it's not going to rain. I think it's going to rain, but Hopefully it doesn't. And I will talk to you guys on Thursday. See ya.